You probably heard the word variable from your junior high or high school days working algebra problems. And you've probably overheard programmers or your cyber coworkers discussing variables. You know they're a thing and you know that they're important in cyber, but what actually are they? In this video, I'm going to break down variables in a way that's simpler than anything you've seen before. We'll talk about what they are, offer a few different examples, and show you how to create and use one in our trusty terminal. After this video, you'll be able to talk about variables with coworkers and friends confidently, knowing exactly what you're talking about. So let's get right to it. First, let's review what a variable is in math. Then we'll talk about how that relates to computer variables. In the magic of mathematics, specifically algebra, a typical equation that utilizes a variable will look something like this. This equation is simple enough that we can tell that x is equal to 5 just by looking at it. Since only 5 plus 5 equals 10, x has to equal 5. X and 5 are different parts of a variable. Let's look closely at the variable's anatomy. All variables have two elements, a name and a value. In the case of the algebra equation, the name was x, and the value was the number 5. This name and value construct is key to understanding variables in cyber. Let's show a variable in our industry. In the context of cyber, it is helpful to think about variables using the analogy of a box. This box needs a label so you, me, and the computer all know we are talking about the same exact box. In other words, I don't want to talk about box 2, but be worried the whole time that you may think I am referring to box 1. Or vice versa. So we label the box something unique to ensure that we are all on the same page when we reference that box. This label we've created for the box is like a variable name. That label or variable name gives us a way to all talk about the exact same box without any confusion. But now that we have a box, what should we fill it with? Well, we can fill the box with anything we want. We could place a basketball inside of it. We could place a baseball inside of it. We could even place another variable inside of it. But we won't, because putting variables inside of other variables goes beyond the intent of this video. Just keep in mind that this is possible. Now, whatever item we place inside of the box, that item is known as the variable's value. And a variable's value is swappable. Just because we have a baseball in there now does not mean we cannot remove that baseball and place a basketball in the box later. So we have an entire variable here. We have the label, which is the variable name, and we have the item inside, which is the variable value, and together these make up a variable. Pretty simple, right? Here's another view of the same concept. The variable's name is box 1, and the variable's value is baseball. The variable name is how we call it, but the variable's value is what we get when we call it. Think of a safety deposit box at a bank. When you go to the bank and ask for access to your safety deposit box, you are not interested in the actual safety deposit box. You are interested in what is inside of it. Maybe you have gold stored in there and you want that gold. So you walk up to the counter and you show the banker your ID. The banker takes your ID and cross-references it to find your deposit box ID, which is akin to a box label or variable name. The banker then takes you to your safety deposit box and you can access your gold, which in this analogy is like your variable's value. Now that we've hashed out the concept and anatomy of a variable, let's take a look at creating and accessing variables in our terminal. To create our own variable, we need to give our terminal a variable name and a variable value, like this. Name equals John. Here's the variable name. Here's the variable value. Hit enter. Now that we've created a variable, how do we access its value? Well, there's a couple of different ways, but the echo command is the simplest. We'll type echo $name. And here's the value. Note the $sign in front of the variable name. The $sign tells the shell to retrieve the value stored inside the variable. One quick note on retrieving a value from a variable. Reaching inside a variable and retrieving its value is known in technical terms as variable expansion. Now, I hate that term, but there is a historic and practical reason for it, So I will concede that it makes sense, in spite of my feelings that it's needlessly complex. See, the term variable is intertwined with mathematics, and in math, as in IT, variables can be small names for larger objects. Consider a math example. Suppose x equals 2 plus 3, and you see the equation x plus 4. If we access the value of x, this will expand the variable to its full length, which is 2 plus 3. Consequently, we get a longer or expanded equation, which is that 2 plus 3 plus 4. This is why accessing a variable is referred to as variable expansion. The term ticks me off again, but it makes sense. Let's go back to our shell. Now, since the value John is the same length as the variable name, the term variable expansion doesn't make a lot of sense. But if we put a longer value inside of the variable name, like this, name equals John likes to fish on Saturdays. You can plainly see how accessing the value of name and calling it variable expansion makes more sense now. Because obviously this is way longer than this. Okay, so we've reviewed what variables are, but we haven't answered why variables exist. You may be thinking, why bother to place a value inside of a variable when you can just type the value directly? And that is an excellent question. And there is one primary reason we have variables: information reuse. Variables let you reuse information, change it in one place, and keep your work flexible. Without variables, you'd have to retype the same value over and over again. Here are some common examples. Storing a username. You may have a coded function that pulls a user's name, and you want to use that code repeatedly for different users. You may use it to store a file path. Consider the tilde symbol, which stands for the user's home path in Linux. Let me show you that. We'll clear this. Just to be sure, I'll type cd tilde. Now let's look at our present working directory. You can see that we're inside the home folder, and inside of that we're in the subfolder Vero. This is called my home path. Now if I go sudo su, let me just do this, su Revan, and change my username, or switch to a different user, and then I type cd tilde again, and then type present working directory, we can see that we are now inside of the home folder and the subfolder Revan. This is username Revan's home path. So you see the tilde always stands for a user's home path, regardless of which user is currently logged in. So the tilde symbol acts like a variable. Its value is different depending on the username you are logged in with. Also, for storing a password, let's say you have some code that will grab a user's password and compare it to what is on file. For security reasons and for code hygiene, you don't want people's password values programmed into code. So instead, one alternative is to use variables. You can see that there are many reasons to use variables. Now you have a solid understanding of variables, what they are, how they work, and even what variable expansion means. If there's a Linux topic you'd like broken down simply, clearly, and thoroughly, drop it in the comments. That's how I decide what to focus on next. In the meantime, you may want to check out Cyber Supplement 1, What is a Literal? Literals are the opposite of variables, and you will hear them often referenced by programmers as well. So keep learning, keep pushing, but don't stress yourself out. Work hard, but give yourself time to grow, and you'll get there. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.